Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael, and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Lollyloo, who about 1 year ago. The post is titled, "Mom changed wedding cake behind my back and doesn't know that I know. My fiance and I are getting married this fall, and the cake has been a huge point of contention with my mom. It's a long saga, but the gist is that we wanted a dessert bar or cheesecake instead of a traditional cake. My mom initially insisted on having at least a small cake for us to cut. We compromised and got quotes. Right before we put down a deposit, she decided that having just a cake for us and not for guests was tacky, so we needed to get a sheet cake to serve as well. We were annoyed because she was the one who suggested it, so we cut our losses and opted for tiered cheesecake and mini cheesecakes as we originally wanted. My mom would not let this go for the past 6 months. She then decided to focus on pushing for a groom's cake. My fiancé did not want one. When I told her this, she said it's really only a groom's cake in name and not about what he wants. I told her a firm no multiple times because she wouldn't give up. That brings us to this week. I received a text yesterday saying she was at the bakery and had paid for the order. I got suspicious because I never included her in those communications. I called the bakery today and was told by a very apologetic employee that my mom had added a multi-tiered groom's cake with different fillings, flowers, the whole kit and caboodle. We still have cheesecake, but I feel like it'll look silly next to what is essentially a wedding cake. My question now is, what do I do? She doesn't know that I know. I'm furious and hurt. Obviously, it's just a cake, but it's not really about that now. She went behind my back and crossed multiple boundaries after I told her no. Am I being a bridezilla for not letting her have her traditional wedding cake? User Tropics and Caffeine said, ask the bakery to convert the cake into additional cheesecake and mini cheesecakes. Consider requesting a smaller groom's cake that looks nothing like a wedding cake. Do not tell her you did this. When you go to the bakery, have a password put on the order so it cannot be changed after you make the appropriate adjustments. She thinks she has gotten something over on you. If she checks on it, the password will prevent her from making any further changes. If she shows up at the venue with yet another cake, instruct the staff at the venue to put it in the back and not bring it out. To this, OP said, thanks for the advice. Having the cake changed to more cheesecakes is a good idea. Never in a million years did I think I'd have to become like one of the Redditors and password protect my wedding, but here we are. User Was a Coot said, it is not just a cake, it is a breach of your boundaries and your wishes. Cancel her order and put a password on all your wedding accounts. You are not marrying her, you are marrying your partner. Under this, OP said, exactly. It's the breach of trust that has been the most upsetting. I need to call back tomorrow and see if it's possible to cancel and get a refund since she paid in full. I suspect she did that intentionally, thinking she was being clever. User Neuro Octopus said, no, you are not a bridezilla. Adulthood is earned, not given. Cancel whatever you did not request and have them refund her card. If she mentions it, firmly and calmly state that you will be directing your own wedding. If she pulls funds, be adults with what you have. The point, after all, is the joining of your lives. Update. Hello again. A big thank you to everyone who gave advice on my original post. I'm now married and had the best, most relaxing honeymoon with my husband without any pesky family bothering us. By the time I posted, it was too late to cancel the wedding due to deposits and contracts, so it continued as planned. To clarify, yes, my parents did pay for the wedding, although my husband and I made it clear several times that we did not expect or need them to cover everything. No, I don't think their payment excuses my mom's actions. My parents reiterated that it was our wedding and we should do what we wanted. Clearly, the cake was the exception to this, even though she had previously said to get cheesecake if that's what we wanted. My husband and I got a laugh out of everyone's suggestions for how to handle the cake. Initially, I wanted to take the petty route and surprise my mom by calling the bakery to change the cake design to something she would find tacky that would reflect my husband's hobbies. After taking a few days to weigh my options, I realized that my desire for petty satisfaction would ruin my relationship with my mom, which had honestly never had this dynamic until wedding planning. I knew that she was absolutely in the wrong and acting like a child. And while I'm technically the child in this relationship, I wanted to be mature and handle this like an adult, if only for my own moral high ground. I communicated with my parents and listed all the reasons why this situation was hurtful and completely out of line. Shock of the century to everyone on Reddit, I'm sure. It didn't go well. I received a series of texts from my mom that demonstrated she couldn't take accountability or comprehend that I wasn't mad because she ruined my wedding by ordering a cake. but rather that she went behind my back knowing it would surprise and upset me on my wedding day. I attempted multiple times to redirect her attention to the actual issue with little success. We ended the conversation with her apologizing for a cake making my husband and me so upset. This obviously wasn't a genuine apology or the main issue, even if she thought it was. She also agreed to move the groom's cake to a meal we had the day before the wedding, which I was fine with. At this point, we were a week out from the wedding, and the thought of continuing to press the issue was too much for me to handle with everything else on my plate. I decided to drop the rope leading up to the wedding so I could refocus on enjoying my day as best as I could. I interacted with my mom as little as possible on the day of, and our wedding party and coordinator did a fantastic job being a buffer. While I've had some contact with her since then, it has dramatically declined so I can get some much needed space. Obviously, we'll need to have some tough conversations, but I'm choosing to spend my time with my new husband first. Weddings, they really bring out the crazy in people. Oh, and the cheesecakes were a huge hit, by the way. And a year after that, OP gave us their most recent update. I'm back with a 1-year update on how my mom changed my wedding cake order without me knowing. People have reached out for an update, and coincidentally, I've had several friends get engaged who have similar family dynamics to mine. I've shared all of this with them, but I feel the need to blast this out online too. Now that I'm a year out, I can acknowledge that I love my husband and our life together, but having a traditional wedding was a big mistake. When I think back on our wedding day, I am devastated to admit that the few emotions I remember from that day were not about how much I love my husband or excitement over our future together, but rather anxiety over my mom and whether things were about to blow up. If you're recently engaged and have difficult family relationships or aren't completely sold on shelling out a ton of money on a wedding, please let this be yet another loud voice yelling at you, elope, have a courthouse wedding. Don't invite problematic guests. Do whatever you want to do, but for the love of God, avoid that family drama at all costs. I wish I would have stuck to what I originally wanted, but alas, I made my decision and have to accept it. What I didn't mention in my initial post was that my relationship with my mom immediately and irrevocably changed as soon as I became engaged. Even though I knew she could be a lot, I had no idea what I was in for. If I could do it all again, I would have stopped that wedding planning train in its tracks after the first few signs of craziness. The cake was, unsurprisingly, just the last straw of craziness that happened. Greatest hits include telling literally everyone she knew that we were getting engaged less than 10 minutes after my husband told my parents he planned to propose. Upon sharing the proposal photos with her, commenting on how big I looked in the pictures, telling a family member who commented on how beautiful I looked at a pre-wedding event, yeah, well, she's gained a lot of weight. Trying to crash my first look the day of my wedding and acting hurt that she wasn't invited. Crashing my first look and throwing a fit when my wedding coordinator wouldn't let her in. Making the wedding all about how she never had a say in anything and that I was the controlling, immature one. We do still have contact today, but it's limited and I am very guarded with what I choose to share. She never genuinely apologized or acknowledged the stress and hurt she caused. Short of some major changes on her part, I don't see that happening. So yeah, the moral of the story is to absolutely soak up the fresh excitement of getting engaged, but seriously, ask yourself if there's anyone in your life who will make wedding planning hell on earth. If you're oh so fortunate to have a character like that, have a plan to handle it, and be prepared to enforce those boundaries. And for the extra crazy families out there, maybe just elope. This next post was made in the relationship advice subreddit by a throwaway account. The post is titled, "I am 28F and my best friend kissed my husband. It's destroying me. I, 28F, have been with my husband, 27M, for 6 years, married for 4 years, and we have 2 kids, 3F and almost 1F. Everything in our relationship is perfect for us. He's the best husband and father to our kids that I could have asked for. I am absolutely in love with him, and his actions and words have always shown me that he feels the same way. There's no better feeling than going to sleep in his arms every night. Last weekend, my husband and I had some friends over for a barbecue. We were all outside in the backyard, surrounding my husband, who was at the grill. As the food got closer to being ready, we all started sitting at our backyard table. Once the food was ready and on the table, my husband went inside to use the washroom and grab another case of beer. I didn't realize that my best friend, 28F, had followed him. When he was coming back out, my best friend hid behind the wall, separating our kitchen and living room, and surprised him by pulling him in and forcing a kiss. My husband immediately pushed her back and yelled, She started crying and ran out of the house. My husband came back into the backyard and asked to speak to me privately. He immediately told me what had just happened. I was shocked and told him that it would be okay and that we could talk after everyone else left. I managed to put on a brave face for the next couple of hours, but I was mentally distraught. After everyone left, my husband sat me down and told me what happened, showing me the footage from our living room camera. It was exactly as he had described it. My best friend of 10 years, the person I treated as my literal sister, had forcibly kissed my husband. After our third date, she was the one I told that I was going to marry him. She knows how much I love him and how strong our relationship is, yet she chose to come between us. For goodness sake, our 3-year-old calls her auntie. My best friend tried showing up the next day just to talk, but my husband had to hold me back from beating her up. He kicked her out and told her not to come back. It's been almost a week now and I'm nowhere close to moving on. I don't blame my husband one bit. He's completely innocent in this situation, and if anything, he's the victim. I've been lying on my husband's chest and just crying every day and night. I'm so angry and frustrated and I don't know what to do. My husband has been amazing. As always, he just gets it and understands how I'm feeling. He brought me flowers almost every day and cooked my favorite meals multiple times in the last few days. I love and appreciate him all the more for it. I just don't know how I'm going to move on or trust any of my friends again after this. User Potential Diver said, "You need to move on from that friendship and tell her not to contact you. There's no way she can explain her actions and you just can't trust her anymore." To this, a deleted user said, "Seriously, she was so jealous of your life, OP, that she threw away your friendship just on the chance that she could ruin it all for you. I would completely cut contact with her and be very honest with any mutual friends about what happened." User 420Fixie Boy said, "Honest to God, we had the exact same situation happen. My wife's former best friend was in a long-term unhappy relationship. Her boyfriend was a scrub who didn't want to get married, didn't want to go back to school, and worked a part-time gig as a 35-year-old trust fund barista while she brought in all the money. She constantly complained about his lack of interest in dates or even alone time with her. She wanted to be a mom, but he hated kids. She was 35 and willing to stay because she was afraid to start over. My wife and I had a bunch of friends over for a big party the day before our wedding. We had a courthouse wedding, so this was like our reception. She came over to help me set up while my wife was gone getting her hair done. As I turned the corner to set up the table, she came out, put her hand on my chest, and leaned in to kiss me. I gently pushed her away and pretended like it didn't happen. I didn't want to ruin my wife's party. It was eating me up inside. So I told my wife the next day after we had on our wedding night. She was really angry at first, but we talked about it and came to the conclusion that her friend was actually a sad character. This girl had a string of bad relationships with complete losers. Her current partner didn't really like her and she was just looking for happiness. My wife and I have been together for 10 years and are best friends. We've had our issues, but overall we love each other and genuinely enjoy our time together. We are both ambitious in our careers and passions and are raising a beautiful baby girl together. I'm not a super hot guy. I'm balding, athletic, but without a six-pack. I'd rate myself a 6.5 on a good day. It wasn't about that. This woman was seeing her best friend happy and getting married, something she would likely never have. Maybe she wanted to sabotage her friend's happiness because misery loves company. Perhaps she saw a man who was willing to commit and love his wife and wanted to steal me away as a last-ditch effort to have that in her own life. Either way, after staying up for hours hashing it out, my wife determined that she would end the friendship but also let go of her anger. She started to pity this girl for never being able to find love and for reaching such a low point in her desperation. Maybe this story will help you come to the same conclusion. Either way, your husband is a good man. User Snoo Foxes said, "You were betrayed and lost your best friend. He was assaulted. Yes, it may be considered minor assault, but it's still significant. Please process this with him because he's going to wonder if he ever gave off any mixed signals and might feel guilty. Even after you've discussed it a bunch, he could start feeling that way, and I'm pretty sure people will ask him about it repeatedly, which could easily lead him to doubt himself. He'll also be thinking about signs she was giving off that he missed and might want to spend a couple of hours going through past encounters with you to try to put it all to rest. This is regular processing, but for him and as a guy, he won't let his mind go there while he's comforting you. That's fair enough, but eventually, when you're ready, make sure you're the one helping him get through this." A few days later, OP gave us an update. After reading many of the comments, I realized that it was possible my husband was having an affair with my best friend. He may have known about the camera and acted accordingly to ensure I didn't suspect anything. her running out of the house crying, my husband showing me the footage before I asked, and his love bombing would all make sense if he were cheating with my best friend. I can't be with a cheater, and I had to make sure my husband was loyal to me. On a side note, I made sure my husband was okay after being forcibly kissed. He said he was fine and didn't feel assaulted, it was just a kiss. He mentioned that he was worried about me because he knew how much this friendship meant to me. Over the weekend, while my husband was doing yard work, I looked through his phone and laptop. Both of us have full access to each other's devices, and I didn't find anything out of the ordinary on his phone. I checked his messages, WhatsApp, social media, and deleted messages folder. There was nothing suspicious on his phone or laptop. This morning, after my husband left for work, I arranged for our next door neighbors, a friendly elderly couple, to watch the girls for a couple of hours. Then I went to my best friend's place without telling her I was coming. She works afternoon shifts, so I knew she would be home in the morning. When she let me in, she seemed scared and I demanded to know the truth. She confessed that she had always been really attracted to my husband and had tried making advances before, but he always shut her down. She admitted to being jealous of me and my perfect life with him. I should have seen the signs earlier. When our firstborn was learning to speak, my best friend would always try to get her to call her mama. When she held our daughter for the first time, she accidentally sat in my husband's lap. She had been trying to replace me for years without me noticing, while my husband kept rejecting her advances because he only wanted me. She said that she had drunk more than she should have at the barbecue and decided to try her luck when she saw my husband going inside alone. I forced her to show me her phone as well, and again, there was nothing implying an affair. All her messages appeared to line up with my husband's phone, so I knew there was nothing deleted or manipulated. She apologized profusely and asked me not to end our friendship over this. I told her that she meant nothing to me and that she could have been happy for me. I treated her like a sister all these years just for her to try and steal my life. Now, I know for sure that my husband never cheated, but the guilt for doubting him is eating me up. If I tell him that I snooped through his phone and laptop and met up with my ex-best friend to verify that he wasn't cheating, it's going to impact our marriage. He'll be very disappointed in me for not trusting him, and if anything, he will lose his trust in me. If I don't tell him, the guilt will continue to consume me. I've never lied or kept secrets from him before, and I don't want to start now, but this is an impossible choice. He's only ever shown me how much he loves and cherishes me, and he doesn't deserve to be betrayed like this. I will update more when I tell him the truth. Update: I told my husband everything, that I looked through his phone and laptop and confronted my ex-best friend. I showed him both Reddit posts and explained that even the few comments speculating that he was having an affair made me paranoid, which led me to act on it. I apologized for doubting him and thanked him for always being an amazing husband, for turning down her advances, and for spoiling me, especially when I was down. He said that he understands and acknowledged that he should have told me earlier about her trying her luck. I'm also starting therapy next week to address my paranoia and trust issues, process the end of my friendship, and generally try to get into a better mental space so I can be a better individual, wife, and mother. Edit 2. That post pretending to be my husband is not actually from him. User David Goldstein said, "You listen to the idiots on this subreddit who sow doubt about your husband's loyalty despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. You can be honest with him, but you know him best, or so you thought. Only you know how he will react to your actions. Tread lightly with this one. Advice from this sub may do more harm than good, even my own." Under this user lady, Morgana said, the vast majority of the responses were that her husband did nothing wrong and that she should dump her boyfriend. The fact is, OP made some very poor decisions, and now she's planning to make another one. OP, don't dump all this on your husband just to absolve yourself of guilt. You didn't believe your husband until you had more proof. You should feel guilty about that. The consequence of your bad choices should be living with the feeling of guilt, not blowing your poor husband's world up even more. A deleted user said, "This is why people shouldn't come to Reddit for advice. Her poor husband did everything right, but the masses on here were sure he was a cheater."